What is up, everybody? This is Modern Randy. I am Randy, and today we're going back over a standard meta breakdown of this past weekend of what happened in the challenges, what decks are performing well, what decks are doing not so well, and what is the overall archetype of that's being played, and what we can expect to see going forward here with like the next SCG con coming up, as well as the RCQ season coming up. So let's get into it. First, we have the standard challenge on Friday. We see that Dimir Midrange was the top dog with 10 copies in the top 32. Next was Golgari Midrange with 6, Cruel Prowess with 5, Azorius Tempo with 2, which is the Azorius Oculus deck running around. Dimir Demons putting up 2, Mono Red putting up 2, and then a couple different one-ofs. So, to no one's surprise, Dimir Midrange is doing the best it can. It is putting up the most numbers as a whole. I think the deck is very popular right now. It is one of the best decks in the format, if not probably the best deck in the format, as it currently sits, with it being cheap removal, cheap efficient creatures, overall game plan that just kind of takes control of the board and doesn't let go of it. It does kind of have a problem with decks going super wide. That's why you kind of see Jeskai Convoke doing well every now and then, because it does have a semi decent matchup against Dimir Midrange because they play a lot of spot removal, not so many board wipes, things like that. It does also Dimir Midrange can also lose to Domain in the sense of it can't go as big as what Domain's doing, but that's not always the case, as well as Dimir has that ability to go underneath Domain, so it's kind of that weird like back and forth type situation that you kind of always see. But to no one's surprise, Dimir Midrange is doing super well. Notably, we have finally, I have changed it out, so I have Dimir Midrange and Dimir Demons as two separate files now, so it is kind of surprising that Dimir Demons is on the downtick or not as popular. I kind of thought the deck might take off some after Worlds, but it looks like people are just more happy playing Dimir Midrange. That being said, Dimir Midrange was the deck that also took down the tournament. This is kind of what I was talking about. We have the cheap efficient creatures. We have the Smoke Spyglass Siren, Deep Counterbat, Interrupt our opponents, Fairy Mastermind, and then Preacher as a way to get card advantage, along with Enduring Curiosity, get card advantage, Cut Down, Anoint, Go for the Throat, all amazing spells to take down your opponent's creatures cheap and efficiently. And then we also have 5 counter spells here with 3 steps ahead and 2 phantom interferences. Just kind of a nice overall package that we have here, and it's not really too surprising that this deck is doing well. I think you can see at the sideboard here of what they are game planned against. We have progresses, negates for the more controlling / slower mid-range matchups. Shieldred there as well. We have Thassa's Tidebinder to answer any kind of problematic triggers. We have Blot Out. We have Grixis Blot Out, Cast Down, and 2 Anointed Afflictions for the aggro decks, along with that Gix command as a board wipe type effect. Not too surprising that this deck is doing super well as a whole. Is kind of what I thought was going to be doing well in the future. I kind of expected this deck to step up and take control of the format, and that's definitely what it's doing. Moving on to Saturday's challenge, or the first Saturday challenge, I should say. Excuse me. Dimir Midrange once again putting up 10 copies in the top 32, followed by Cruel Prowess, Mono Red with 5, Azorius Tempo with 2, Jeskai Convoke with 2, and then a bunch of different one-ofs. So once again, not too surprising, we're seeing Dimir Midrange be 30+% of the meta for this challenge, or for the challenge top 32. It's not too surprising. Like I said, the deck is very well positioned, does very well. Cruel Prowess and Mono Red are the two other decks that put up the most amount of numbers. Not surprising. They're one of the decks that can definitely compete with Dimir Midrange. They punish you for misstepping any way, shape, or form, and just kind of go faster than whatever your game plan is. Dimir Midrange obviously doesn't have a terrible matchup against that with a bunch of cheap efficient removal, but it is one of those things where if you draw more creatures and you do removal, Cruel Prowess and Mono Red's going to make you look silly because your 1/1s don't really block too well into they're trampling 3/3s and such. It makes you look silly when you don't have the removal spells. So it's not too surprising we see the aggro decks kind of popping back up in the second challenge. And then Mono Red did take down the overall challenge, which again, this deck really hasn't changed since we saw it in Worlds. Pretty much what you see is what you get. It's playing all the same 4-ofs that it was playing, with the big notable being difference that with Soccer Friendly, it's like you're only 3 of in the deck. And then the sideboard is exactly kind of what you would expect it to be. We have Torsa Tower for the mirror deck, the mirror decks for the mirror matches. Jesus, we have Urabrax's Forge here for the mid-range grindy decks. It's a recurring threat that's hard to deal with. Lithomancer's Barrage is definitely there for the Oculus decks, as well as the Dimir mid-range decks running around. And then we also have, Twisted Fidelity as a way to steal our opponent's big creatures, and the Witchstalker's Frenzy in there to be able to take out any problematic creatures. Moving on to the second challenge, though, of course, for Saturday, we had Dimir mid-range once again being 8 copies, along with Mono Red this time, though. So Dimir wasn't the only top dog in the top 32 this time. Gruul mid-range putting up 6, Golgari mid-range putting up 6, Gruul Prowess putting up 2, and then a bunch of different ones this time, which was a little bit weird to see. Things like everybody wanted to play something different this time. But, Dimir mid-range, Mono Red still putting up, 25% each, half of the top 32. Not too surprising, like I said. Mono Red just won a challenge, won the last challenge. Not too surprising, it's going to be super popular on the second one. Obviously, Dimir mid-range has been super popular. And to no one's surprise, Dimir mid-range once again took down this tournament. Notice this is a little bit different of a build, though. There's no 3 steps ahead in this version. This one's playing Unstoppable Slasher. It had one Mockingbird in it as well. Flood Pit's Drowner was a big one in this one. We didn't see it in the last one. That card's kind of seeing a lot more play. Definitely is a good card in my opinion. I'm kind of surprised it's not seeing more play. Just some notable differences, and then the sideboard obviously a little bit different too. So it's all just kind of depending. I don't think there is a one best build of Dimir mid-range as it stands right now. I think that we're still waiting to see what's going to be the best deck overall. Or I'm talking after the deck, but the best build of it overall. So I think we're still trying to vie and figure out what that's going to be. Not to mention we have Foundations coming out here in just, I think, 2 weeks now. Will be fully released, so I'm not too sure how this deck is gonna change with Foundations. If it's gonna get better, get worse. I can imagine it's only gonna get better because of how good the deck already is. But moving on to the Sunday challenge, we had Mono Red at 7 copies, then Dimir midrange at 7, Gruul Prowess at 6, Golgari midrange at 4, Orzhov midrange at 3, Azorius Enchant at 3, and then Jeskai Convoke and Bant Enchantments at 1 each. So we're still seeing Mono Red put up numbers to try to keep up with Dimir midrange. Gruul Prowess again trying to keep up with Mono Red and Dimir. So not too surprising there. It does look like, if you kind of look at it, it does seem that we have a bunch of mid-range is kind of like the deck to play in Standard as it was seen, which isn't too surprising. We've seen this probably every Standard rotation, where mid-range is usually the deck that you want to play because it has game against the aggro decks running around and the control decks running around. Not that control's really running around at this point. We've not seen really any kind of control moving forward. That being said, though, once again, Dimir midrange did take down this tournament as well, and again, a whole different kind of deck setup here, where we're playing only 3 creatures this time, only 1 Enduring Curiosity. We're playing Gix in this one instead. We had the 3 steps ahead back. We have a Bitter Triumph now. Shieldredge in the main. So it's all these kind of like different variations and takes on Dimir midrange. Ghost Vacuums in the sideboard now. Just kind of different takes, different ideas. I don't think there is still one best deck. Like I was saying, a little bit earlier, I think that this deck is going to continue to keep changing and evolving until someone figures out, the perfect 75. And I don't know if there's going to be a perfect 75. I think it's going to be a lot of codependency on what you expect to see at your tournament that you're playing at. Depends on like what you want to be playing or what you want to be doing, essentially, what cards oh, I think there's gonna be a lot of aggressive decks. I'm gonna put my Shieldredge in the main this time. I was like, oh, I think there's gonna be a lot of mirror matches. All right, well, I'm gonna put insert what card I think is good against the mirror match in the main. Things like that. And I think that's what you're gonna see a lot of. Same thing with the sideboard. Obviously, is always gonna be adapting and changing. So not too surprising there. But that leads us into what we saw overall this weekend. So overall this weekend, we saw 35 Dimir midrange decks in the top 32. I would definitely say Dimir is here to stay. I definitely say it is probably one of the top dogs, if I had to say anything else more about it. Mono Red putting up 22 copies overall in the top 32. Notably, Gruul Prowess only did 14. So it does seem Mono Red is more favored among the players to take or to play than it is to play the Gruul Prowess version of it, or the green-red version of it. Golgari midrange putting up 16 copies as well, so it does seem that, like, though the midrange is probably the best version to take, People are still on the Golgari plan. They still like what it's doing. They still like playing, the up the beanstalk, those type of things. Notably, Azorius Tempo dropped off the face of the earth with 4 or 5 copies. Sorry, kind of crazy because if we go back to last weekend, it was putting up, I think it put up 20 or 22 copies overall in the last weekend, and now it just dropped to 5. And I think that deck might not be that well positioned in standard as it currently sits. I think it doesn't have enough things going for it as a whole. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. Maybe there's a revival of it. Maybe people learn how to play it better. Maybe people make some changes to it. Maybe Foundations gives it that extra like kick in the arm that it's been missing. No one can say for sure, but I do think that this deck is more of a flash in the pan than people thought it was. I think that it's really cool. I think that the Oculus is really cool and a really powerful card. I don't know how good it actually is in standard though, and it seems to be not doing that well. Then we know we had Orzhov Midrange put up 4 copies, Azorius Enchantments put up 4 copies, Domain put up 3. Again, that's a big downtick to what we saw last time. I think Domain is very poorly positioned in this format as a whole. I think that when it lost the Triumphs, it lost a lot more than what people expected. And I don't think people really realized how bad Domain was until we have started getting into standard and really digging into it. I think that Domain is in a bad position because the aggro decks go underneath it really fast. The mid-range is playing counter spells and tempo. It just, it messes them up. They don't have a way to stabilize against that. So I think that, they just are in a bad position. Jeskai Convoke putting up 3 numbers as well. I think people are favoring the more burn heavy plans with, the Gruul Prowess and the Mono Red. So it's not too surprising there. Dimir Demon's only putting up 3 copies. A little surprising. I think the deck is maybe more of a flash in the pan than I thought it was going to be. I thought that might have been, something that was going to do well, but I think people just prefer the mid-range plan, the cheap interactive creatures, that type of thing more than the demon combo plan. That rug combo deck that was running around only put up 2 copies this weekend. It had put up, I want to say it put up double digits last weekend, and it seems like it has just fallen off the face of the earth. So not too surprising to see that kind of go. I think that was another big flash in the pan. I think it got a lot of attraction from Worlds, and people started playing it a bunch more and realizing it wasn't as well positioned as I thought it was. So not too surprising there to see that happen. And then, Gruul Prowess with 2, Rakdos Midrange with 2, and then a bunch of little one-ups. So nothing too surprising as a whole. I think we can, really draw from this today. If you're going to be going to any RCQs, you're going to be going to the SCG Con in Columbus here in like two weekends, I think it is now, from now. You're going to want to be playing either Dimir Midrange, Mono Red, Gruul Prowess, or something that can beat those decks. You have to have those in mind. Now, obviously, Foundation is going to be coming out. That's going to be shaking up the meta some. We're going to be getting different cards in, different things like that in. So we'll have to wait and see, what actually is going to be played, what actually is going to be good. But I don't imagine Dimir Midrange is going to go from the best deck in standard right now to tier 4. It's not going to drop off the face of the earth. So I do think that if you're going to be playing any RCQs, the SCG Columbus, anything like that, you need to have a game plan for Dimir Midrange, or you need to be playing Dimir Midrange for sure. And then you also need to have a plan for the aggro decks. It definitely feels like it's aggro, midrange is what you need to have a plan for. And I wouldn't worry about control existing, honestly, at this point. Not until we have more data to prove that deck archetype can work out. But as always, guys, if you like what I'm doing, you like what you're seeing, go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know how you think Foundations is going to change the standard meta game. Love to hear from you.